Now, Sri Lanka continues to recover from the devastating economic crisis of 2022. People will vote today in the first election after the crisis, and the economy will remain on the top of the agenda. The crisis has led to widespread food and fuel shortages and has prompted Sri Lanka's President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, remember, to flee the country in 2022. The voting will take place today at around 13,134 polling stations in Sri Lanka and begin at around 7 a.m. local time. The voting will close at around 4 p.m. local time as well, and counting will begin late into the night at around 9:30 p.m. their time. Remember, Ranil Wickremesinghe has in fact urged the public in Sri Lanka to give him a fresh mandate, as he says that he's improved the situation in Sri Lanka since the Rajapakshas. Gauri Dwivedi joins us live from Colombo. Gauri, take us through the latest in terms of the voting and preparations for polling in Sri Lanka. Also, if you could give us some context in terms of the race, presidential race there in Sri Lanka as well.
Indeed, this is probably one of the most consequential elections in Sri Lanka in the last 35, 40 years for three reasons. One, of course, is that it happens in the backdrop of the economic crisis which took Sri Lanka to its very brink. It's recovered since then, but the cost of living standards have and the cost of living has shot up so much that it's practically impossible for people to continue living as they were before that crisis and before pandemic. So it's very important in that context. Second is, this is an election where there's still no clear winner. Till now, a week before the elections, typically in all previous elections, a clear winner does emerge. That hasn't happened till now. All three candidates are pretty much neck to neck. And the third reason why this election is so consequential is because this is the first time that the president of Sri Lanka could be chosen on the basis of a second preferential decision vote by the voters and not the first preferential, simply because there is no clear winner at this stage. Now, there are the three candidates who are in the fray is Ranil Wickremesinghe. He finished the previous president's term the last 2 years when he brought Sri Lanka back from its brink and from a sovereign default. He's now seeking a fresh mandate, saying that the next 5 years will be about creating export-led growth drivers for Sri Lanka. Remains to be seen whether that will happen or that's resonating with the voters on ground. An example in the sense of why cost of living has shot up so much for an average Sri Lankan. The average price of an egg or milk used to be about 12 rupees, and that's now upwards of 60 rupees. And that's the impact that the last 3-4 years have had on the Sri Lankan people, which is why AKD, Anurag Kumar Dissanayake, who's a leftist, left-leaning candidate, has really resonated with a lot of people on ground, particularly young voters, youth have come behind AKD, so to say. And the third important candidate is Sajith Premadasa, who's the leader of opposition, a man who feels that he can bring Sri Lanka towards an economic path without making it so costly, prohibitively costly for the average Sri Lankan. So as I said, it's a three-horse race, and it may be up to the second preferential vote that could decide for the very first time who would be Sri Lanka's next president, and huge ramifications for India, given because of its proximity, and of course the fact that the heavy word China keeps circulating very often in Colombo politics now.
Right, Gauri, now in terms of Ranil Wickremesinghe, he did mention that he has done a lot to ensure that to mitigate the crisis in Sri Lanka and to also ensure that the situation improves from where it was in 2022. We also saw initially, once he'd come to power after the Rajapakshas, he had immediately set to work saying that he's going to implement certain steps to ensure that the economic crisis does not go deeper in Sri Lanka. But has there been a change on ground?
To that effect, yes, the answer is that, credit must be given where it's due. In just less than 2 years, a lot of normalcy has actually returned on the streets of Colombo in the Sri Lankan economy. And to that, credit must be given to Ranil Wickremesinghe. He compared Sri Lanka to Greece in our interview, where he said that Greece took 10 years and Sri Lanka took less than 2 years to bring us back to a situation where we can start imports, we can ensure that daily requirements and essentials of people in Sri Lanka can be imported. So, to that extent, it's a huge plus for him. But what has happened is that the IMF loans, when they had to be restructured, and the massive debt that Sri Lanka had to be restructured, meant very stringent austerity measures. So all government spending on public goods had to be stopped, which is why when subsidies went away, suddenly the cost of living shot up for people. So they said that while the economy is coming back, we are the ones who are actually paying for it through our nose. And that's the reason why the two other candidates against Ranil Wickremesinghe have struck a chord with the people.
Right, thank you, Gauri, for joining us and bringing us those details. Continue tracking the story on the ground. We'll come back to you.